Hello, welcome to Think Different podcast. Pastor Morgan, how are you?
Good afternoon. I am doing better than when I was worse. How about you?
I'm fine. That sounds hopeful.
We have to remain hopeful in this life.
That's true. That's true. So I saw where you led a group called Possibility Ministries.
Mhm.
So I'd like to know, why is it better to talk about what people can do instead of what they can't do?
Because many times in life, the negative side of life always creates imbalance in how a person live their life. And so Possibility Ministries is a way to focus on their abilities more than the disabilities. And I think God expects us to look at the intrinsic values of everybody,
Right.
how they operate, how they work, and to see how we can best utilize the skills that they have in bringing about a meaningful life.
That's true. That's true. And how has it been so far doing these ministries?
It's good so far, actually like it. Working with people and seeing how they can be elevated from their state of living and allowing them to experience a better life. It always gives joy.
That's good. And we all need it right now.
Definitely.
Yes. How does a person's mental health improve when they stop seeing themselves as broken or limited?
You know, the person not only thinks differently, but they behave differently.
Mm,
They see themselves no longer as individuals who are segregated from society, but
right.
they see themselves as a whole, as being included, as being a part of what is happening in our world. And to even add to that is the fact that they think that they can add value, and which I believe they can, and they do when
Right.
they are assisted in their state. They add value to life.
That's true. That's true. What is one way you help somebody find hope and, let them feel more optimistic?
Um, One of the things that we have to do is to get help in the best way possible. And what do I mean when I say that? Is that whatever condition we find the individual in, or
Right.
individuals are in, we utilize resource individuals who are skilled in those areas to assist them. So we try to reach out to these stakeholders, or it could be counselors, psychologists, whatever the case may be, to see how best we can assist individuals in these areas. And so it's sometimes, individuals try to take on too much
Right. Yeah.
and do more injury than good. And so the best thing you can do for the individuals is to bring them to someone, refer them to someone who you know is qualified in the area if you know you're not qualified for it. And so that's one way in which we assist them.
That's good. That's true. I saw where you had information about yourself about being the only pastor in your area that does sign language. How does that make you able to communicate with persons who don't necessarily know how to speak fluently or don't know how to sign fluently? How do you help them with knowing about sign language?
Yeah, so I must tell you that it is truly a wonderful blessing to have this necessary skill in my toolbox,
Right.
because I see where it has enhanced the ministry and enhanced the lives of individuals. Currently leading the Adventist Possibility Ministries at the conference, we have arranged several training sessions. We have had two last year, and we are looking forward to having another this year in the month of July. And
Right.
so, assisting individuals to understand and appreciate the language, this is one way in which we have done that. And of course, we are utilizing also the possibility ministry conventions that we have as a training method for individuals who need, seek to learn these things as well.
Okay, that's good. You like to talk with people about things, or do you find it that you preach and you reach more to the larger audience? Which you think works best for you when connecting with people?
You know, it depends on the circumstances. I always say to my colleagues in ministry, one size doesn't fit all.
Right,
Um, there are certain individuals who would rather that you preach over the pulpit and you share from a lectern,
right,
while others would prefer a teaching method, while some would prefer visitations, some would prefer one-on-one study and stuff like that. And so it's all a part of knowing what suits in what area. However, to correctly answer your question, I like the idea of sitting around and engaging one on one with individuals, because that's the time you
right,
actually get to find out a lot more about them and
right,
understand what their needs are. Because they are able now to say to you, this is where I'm lacking, this is what I'm hoping to achieve, and stuff like that.
right. Do you feel as if listening is very important? Is it important in regards to healing?
It is. In fact, because we spend so much time in sharing, we do not get to understand and appreciate what individuals are saying to us. And so, listening to what they have to share, what they have to communicate, what they have to, um, pour out to you from their heart about the challenges of life, and also the not just in terms of the challenges, but
Right,
also their
yeah,
success stories,
that's
helps you
true.
know to
Yeah,
understand and appreciate how you treat individuals going forward.
that's true. Do you find it that persons will share a lot about their success stories versus the times when they had those bad or down days?
What I find happening is that individuals tend a lot to share their success stories more often than not. They like to share about their success stories.
Right,
Uh, but quite, well, I would not say few, because you find more people coming out now sharing about their downside of life,
right,
as versus in the past. However, I think there's still room for improvement, and persons tend to share about those when you get them in a one-on-one sitting. Of course, there are some situations, for example, group counseling, you find persons will share these things, especially if it's a
yeah,
group counseling where all the persons in that group experience go through the same experience, and so you can share in such ways. But persons tend to share about the downside when you can connect with them on a personal level.
yeah,
But most times you find people are willing to share about their success stories. They are not afraid to go before public. Mind you, some individuals
yeah,
will be afraid, but
right,
persons tend not to be afraid going before public to say what they have achieved and their success stories. But you won't find very often persons will tell you in a public setting about what they have gone through, the trauma, the suffering, the pain, or even things that they themselves have done bad in past.
right.
And so you find that you really read that out in the various counseling sessions when you sit and speak with them.
That's true. But how can we as a person work on ourselves in making sure that people don't feel out of place and feel that sense of belonging?
I'm happy that you have phrased the question, how can we work on ourselves? Because
Right, yeah.
that is the key in order to help individuals, because you can't really pour out what is not coming in. And so you have to take time for yourselves, and of course, persons who do counseling will tell you that you yourself need a counselor. You need to
Yeah.
have moments for yourself, moment with your with time for reflection. Enjoy things in life. What is it that you enjoy? You ask yourself some question. What is it that you enjoy? Am I doing the things that I enjoy? How often am I doing these things? Um, do I what are the number of friends that I have? Who are
Right.
the friends I have? Am I connecting with my friends? How often am I connecting with my friends? These all help to shape and build the person you are. And then training also is important, that you want to ensure that you become au fait with the area in which you are serving. So either you go to school, do some online classes, or you want to go to seminars, workshops, whatever the case may be. But you need to build yourself to know how to deal with the individuals that you are going to serve. Because without that knowledge, you are basically putting yourself into what people say a hot frying pan. So you want to make sure that you're okay with what
Yeah,
you're going to. And of course, as I said earlier, you want to also build yourself.
that's true. Some people think that if you have a sad or anxious mind, you just need more faith. But what do you say to that?
It is good. I can tell you, it is good. In fact, when persons are counseled in areas, this is what basically you're doing. You're actually
Right.
putting them in a state where they believe that they can achieve. However, you wouldn't want to necessarily share with them on the perspective that faith in the biblical context, even though we understand that it is good. You don't want to share in that way. You want to let them know that there are things out there that they need to tap into. Let me see if I can break that down a little bit more for you, so I can,
Right, yeah.
because I don't want individuals to go with the tendency to believe that
Yes,
faith
clarity
is
is
not
always
good.
good.
Because as I said, yes, because it said it is basically faith we are actually instilling in the people, and faith, because whatever God does is always the best, and when persons do counseling, they're actually doing what God has asked them to do, instill faith in the individuals.
Right,
But what I'm saying now is that you want to gradually build faith. Faith is something that is exercised. I think that's the best way I can put it. So you don't just throw it out to the person and you just say to the person, all you need to do is pray. Have some faith, man. The person
yeah.
is yeah, the person is not gonna take that. So you want to know, the person wants to know that you're there for them. I am
Right.
here. Let me see how I can
Empathize with
assist
them
you
a
through
bit.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, right, right.
When someone comes to you for help, how do you know if they need prior, doctor, or both?
It has to do with the questions you ask.
Right.
So asking questions is very important. And sometimes, the questions, when you ask the questions, you have to ask them again, but maybe rephrase the question, because sometimes they may not really um, want to answer the question in a particular way, but then
Right.
you have to rephrase it without them recognizing that you're rephrasing a question. And not
Yeah.
only that, but also you find that there are some questions they may choose to answer because of how you have also phrased it as well. And so during the sessions, you're speaking with them, you're talking with them, you get to understand what their needs are. You want to ask questions such as saying, okay, I get to understand that you are saying this,
Right.
but how do you get to overcome this situation? And if they tell you, I am not able to overcome, I'm struggling, or they say, what I normally do, I try to, just zone out or just go out for a timeout, then you get to
Yeah.
understand how to appreciate and deal with it. And as I said when we just started,
Right.
um, it might be the case also where you're not qualified for the area, and so you want to refer the individual as well. You might recognize that the direction the person is going is not for you, and so you have to try to lead them into a direction where they now receive referral.
Yes, and that makes a lot of sense. You want to be on the safe side and something that actually helps them.
Right.
How can the church be a safe place for people to talk about mental struggles without feeling judged?
It starts with training.
Right.
The church would have to be trained to know that there are individuals in society who are, well, the church should know, but maybe not looking at it in a very keenly, that persons are just different.
Yeah.
And we know that from a biblical perspective, but we perhaps might not have given thought to it. Persons are just different, and we do not treat everybody the same way. And because of this, we have to understand and appreciate everybody as how they are and
Right.
how we can assist them going forward. We're talking about people with neurodivergent issues, you're talking about persons who are experience traumatic situations, you're talking about persons with disability, you're talking about persons who, there are so many different things
Yeah,
that are
the
happening.
variety of it. Yeah.
Yes, and so a person comes now into the church space, and perhaps is the only place that they can find
Right.
solace. And I can tell you this, being a volunteer chaplain also to the JCF, quite a number of domestic violence cases would have come before you, and you're dealing with these situations. And what we find is that since COVID, the cases they have just ballooned. Even though I have not really done a research into it or asked,
Yeah.
but I am just assuming that it could be that before COVID, you find partners, either the husband or the gentleman goes off to work, the wife or the lady also does the same,
Right.
and so they are not in each other's space. But now in COVID, everybody is locked down. They're in each other's space.
Yes, and it gets more intense.
24/7, it creates confusion. It creates
Right.
contention because it's not something they're used to, because they're used to the idea of going out, coming back in. And so as I said, I'm speaking from my perspective, just looking at it, because not
Yeah.
a research I've done in it, but I can tell you that the cases have ballooned. And why am I sharing this? To insert this aspect into your question, is the fact that understanding that each person is different. There are so many things happening as it relates to domestic violence. Cases are just coming in, and when a person comes in with a case like that to church, they have just been abused by their partner, and they come to the church as a place of solace, and when they come, they receive another abuse. That
Wow.
is trauma.
Yeah.
You call it double whammy. It's trauma. And so
Yeah.
it behooves, therefore, that as a church we train our members to understand that when persons come into the space, we are to be careful how we treat them, because Jesus did say that is how we treat these individuals, that we'll know if we are truly his, because Matthew 25 will share with us that, and that you did not visit me, you did not pray with me, you did not clothe me, you did not feed me. He wants us to reach out to individuals and be their savior.
True. You manage mentally.
As I stated earlier, that we try to ask the person's question, like things like, what do they enjoy about life? Do they have friends? And we encourage them to do the things that they enjoy. We encourage them to keep in contact with their friends and so forth. And so sharing this information to individuals,
Yeah.
we ourselves need it. And as I shared earlier, that as a counselor needs a counselor. So you want to ensure that you yourself also has somebody that you can go to. You want to ensure that the things in life that you enjoy, you are also doing them. And you're asking yourself the question also, how often am I doing these things? So, of course, I like football, I like sports. And so there are a few persons who I would normally share sporting ideas with, and we watch those sporting games. And of course, I have my team that I support, and they have their team that they support. And when their team lose, it gives me joy. I laugh, and the Bible says laughing is
Yeah.
like medicine. So, so that brings me some joy.
You sound like a Chelsea fan.
No, no, no,
Really?
no, no, no. I've been smiling more often these days. I'm a Manchester United man.
Okay. Because Chelsea fans are normally so, outspoken and, die-hearted. So, yeah.
I leave that
Okay.
one to Pastor O'Hara.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, I do appreciate you being on the platform and sharing your knowledge so
My
others
pleasure.
can hear and it can at least help somebody and at least they can know you from this perspective because persons always the persons in role and you're like, okay, I know they're responsible for this, but they've never really asked the person, how are you mentally? Because everybody's coming to you for help and everybody wants to say this and say that and they want the counseling, but they've never asked to check. How are you managing things? Can you take on the world like, you're Superman?
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. And that
Yeah.
is important for the councils as well. Definitely.
Yes. So thank you again for
My
being on the
pleasure.
podcast.
Before you go, let me, if I may just hasten on to just share a little bit about the Adventist
Sure,
Possibility Ministries, yeah, because sometimes
definitely.
folks ask, what is it about? And when we share with them that it's the same ministry that used to call special needs, they're like, oh, because they have never heard the name Adventist Possibility Ministries. And so it's the same one
Okay.
that we used to call Special Needs Ministry.
Okay.
However, the church no longer calls it Special Needs. We now say Adventist Possibility Ministries. I mean, in our local
Okay.
setting, as we speak one on one, or we're sharing in church, we can always say Possibility Ministries. But the church prefers us to use Adventist Possibility Ministries as the official
Okay.
name in documentation, because the church uses abbreviations to differentiate the ministries, and PM would be personal ministries, but ours is APM, Adventist Possibility Ministries.
Okay,
Um,
great.
and whereas in special needs, it focuses on persons with disabilities, the Adventist Possibility Ministries covers that plus more. So it still focuses on the persons with disabilities, but it also covers the caregivers because they themselves are in need of care. And
Right.
it also covers vulnerable children and orphans, and it covers bereavement for spousal loss. So these are the areas covered
Okay,
by
that's
Adventist
good.
Possibility Ministries. Let me just share them again. It's persons with disabilities, caregivers, vulnerable children and orphans, and the bereavement for spousal loss. So those are the areas covered by Adventist Possibility Ministries.
Okay, that's good. That's a good coverage for persons.
Yes.